determined by gender. Men tend to store more fat within the abdomen, particularly within the greater omentum. Women store fat in the hips and thighs and buttocks. Okay? Breast. Okay? So it's in part genetically determined. There are two types of fat. Unilocular fat is the type of fat we see in adults. It's also called white or yellow fat because it contains carotenoids, vitamin C type of molecules that impart that color. In this unilocular fat, you see one large central droplet of fat within the cell. It's not broken down into multiple droplets. Almost every organ or structure within the body contains fat, except for a few exceptions. Okay? For the most part, the external ear does not have fat. Eyelids do not contain fat. The penis has no fat. And think about it. Who wants a big old fatty eyelid anyway? Right? So, there are only a few tissues or organs that don't have any fat in them. Now, in infants, there's a second type of fat called multilocular fat. And this is also called brown fat. Instead of having a single large central droplet of fat, you have numerous lipid or fat droplets. Okay? The nucleus, instead of being compressed to the outside of the cell, is more centrally located. And these cells have a lot of mitochondria. Well, if there's a lot of mitochondria, it means that these cells are producing energy. Okay? Brown fat, or multilocular fat, is very vascular. It's found in newborns in a very limited distribution between the shoulder blades, okay, along the neck here, okay, and the anterior abdominal wall. Infants do not have the ability to shiver, and in doing so produce heat. That's why we swaddle them, okay? Brown fat allows the infant to consume the triglycerides to generate heat to warm the body. That's why all those mitochondria are there. Okay, they metabolize the fat, and in doing so produce heat. So, brown fat is only found in infants. This is typical adipose tissue, the type found in adults. This would be unilocular adipose tissue. Again, most of the cell is made up of triglycerides and fat. The nucleus is pushed off to the periphery. Okay? And you have these cells bundled together. This is brown fat, or multilocular fat. You can see inside the cell there are multiple droplets. Okay? And many times, look, the nucleus is rounded and more centrally located. It's not being compressed necessarily. So this is brown fat. Now, again, if you had to depict the prototypical location of unilocular fat, the most common type of fat, you'd say the hypodermis, or the subcutaneous tissue. The subcutaneous tissue is really made up of loose connective tissue with pockets of adipose tissue, pockets of fat. In fact, many times where you find loose connective tissue, you will find little pockets of fat, or adipose tissue. I'll give everyone a slide now, adipose. Oh, actually, you have skin. Earlier, I gave you a slide of skin with dense irregular connective tissue. What I want you to do is go deep to the dense irregular connective tissue into the hypodermis and find fat. You have a skin slide? Oh, here it is. So look below the dense irregular connective tissue, below the dermis, and in the hypodermis, you're going to find adipose tissue.